All right, so next I'm going to talk about kombucha. I'm assuming that since you all came here interested in learning, you probably already know it is fermented tea. And again, just like the lacto fermentation, it has been around for ages. So it's one of those things where it takes time, but it doesn't take your time. You have a couple steps where you have to, give it a little bit of attention, but pretty much it sits. And that's where for most of these, that's where it is. The very first thing you need when you're making kombucha is you're going to need a big jar. I go with a jar that's a little bit bigger than a gallon jug because I like to have an actual gallon of tea when I'm done. If you do a gallon jar and you take out your starter tea for your next batch and everything, you kind of get less tea, so I use a bigger jar to combat that. So you have your bottle, this would be empty technically, and you have your tea. So you want to start off by making a sweet tea for your base. So I use a variety of black teas. You want to be careful. I think like the Earl Greys may have like a oil. They have the bergamot oil in it, and that can affect your process. So when you're getting your tea, just get a basic black tea. You don't want to get anything that has fruits in it. You put your fruit in later. And again, that can mess up the ferment. So I start off with 3 tablespoons of tea into my bag. Put it in. I throw just about 4 cups of water into my pot. And it is literally, you want to get your water boiling first. So you would do this, you would drop your tea bag in with your tea after it's boiling, and you would let it sit for about 6 minutes to steep. Once it is done steeping, you will have your tea. So I have my tea in there doing its thing. And after it's done its thing, there's my tea. So we're going to put that over there. So the very first thing you need to do is have your sweet tea ready. So after you boil it and you let it sit for like the 6 minutes, you take the tea out and you're going to add a cup of sugar. And I know everybody's like, oh my God, a cup of sugar into a gallon of, oh, that's too much sugar. That is food for your SCOBY. Okay, oh my God, what is a SCOBY? Okay. Your SCOBY is
symbiotic colony of bacteria
and yeast.
That's the acronym for SCOBY.
I guess because it started out with one, so it's officially called a mother, but you'll hear everybody call it a SCOBY. And this is what holds all your beautiful, beautiful bacteria and yeast that gets you your wonderful kombucha. Like I said, you're going to get your tea, you're going to pour it into your gallon jar, you're going to add your starter tea, and then you're going to put your SCOBY on top. And this is what I use, just a piece of muslin. You put that on like that. You take it downstairs and or wherever you're taking it. For me, I'm taking it downstairs. Act as if I'm talking about my house. So sorry about that. But I take it downstairs, I put it in my little thing, and then I have mine on a 12-day cycle. It's really going to be your preference on how you want your kombucha. I talk to people who only do like 4 and 5 days, and to me, I don't know how you get anything going at that point. I'm going to say you can start testing it. I would start testing it at about 7 or 8 days if you wanted to. What I don't like about testing is the thing with this, it's a set it and forget it type thing. Because this SCOBY will form a barrier and it will close off. And every time you go to sample it, you're supposed to stick a little straw in and go down to the side and get a little bit. But to me, every time you do that, you're breaking that seal. So I learned to just go with a couple batches to decide. That's where I filled it up enough where it sucked and it formed the seal. And you can see where it kind of started, you see that little round? Like on top of the SCOBY, like it got in there and it seals up, and then it does all of its beautiful action. So this has been downstairs now in my basement for 12 days. Again, that is 2 cups of starter tea, a gallon of water, and the SCOBY, okay? So now I've brought it up and I'm ready to do my second ferment. When I pour it out of here, you're going to see fizz. It definitely has a natural fizz. But once you second ferment it, you want to add a little bit of another sugar source to kind of give it that extra pop. And that can be really anything that, if you look in here, it gives you a lot of great ideas. But it's pretty much anything that you want to try. I've learned some things don't work. I don't like kiwi. Kiwi does something really weird. It kind of makes it have a smelly taste.
Raisins work great.
Yeah, raisins to give it an extra burst. Also, dates. If you put a little bit of date in, it'll give it that sugar. So that is really important for having, again, if you like that fizz. If you don't care about fizz, then you could actually drink it as it is. So I have now brought this up from my basement and I'm ready to do my second ferment, which is bottling it. My easy out is orange juice, fresh squeezed orange juice. Again, you don't want to buy stuff and have the other ingredients that are in it. If you're doing stuff, you always want to do fresh. Fresh or frozen, but I mean, you know, when you're doing juices, I recommend making your own juice. And so this is my go-to. I think it gives it a nice sugar. I don't usually just do orange juice. I add something else with it. However, today, to save on time, I'm just going to be using the orange juice. After you have your bottles ready, which they'll be, you're going to want to take your yeah, you got to touch that SCOBY. Do not be afraid to touch the SCOBY. I know it's weird. I did a continuous brew. I tried it. I don't like the continuous brew. I don't get the fizz that I get when I do the small batch. But my continuous brew has a top that is like this. So I had this SCOBY that was this big, like that thick. So I put this in here and then I measure out my tea, my starter tea for the next batch, which is going to be 2 cups of starter tea, okay? So I usually I do a little extra because you can always pour it back into the, at the end there. So you do that. You just want to kind of keep him happy in his juices off to the side until you're ready, all right? So we're on to flavoring the bottles. Usually you use, for this size bottle, you use about 1/4 of a cup of whatever fruit you're using. So because I'm just doing orange juice, actually this was an orange and ginger. I threw some ginger in there so that it had, some yumminess. So you're just gonna pour 1/4 of a cup into your bottles. So, boom, that's all it takes to flavoring your next kombucha. I like using fresh fruits for obvious reasons, but most of the time we don't have fresh fruit. Like, I'd rather use frozen fruit than using a fruit that's out of season, not at our time. So if you're not buying stuff that's kind of local and fresh, then I would go with frozen. And I use all organic as well for all of the same reasons. You don't want things in there, you know. So anyways, I have my bottles ready. They are flavored and they're ready to go. So all I do is, see, and you can see it's got some fizz to it, but I want it to have that extra fizz.